Live with a guest at curated by Kelly Michelle and waiting to see when she comes on. But today we'll be going into talking about the menopausal weight gain or perimenopausal weight gain. And first of all, today is International Women's Day. And of course, that means a lot of different things for a lot of different women globally. We are faced with a lot of different challenges depending on where we live, who we are, how we live our life. And we must recognize the fellow women around the world and lift each other up today. We all have different challenges, some greater than others. So I see curated by Kelly Michelle, who's joining. And I'm going soon. She will be joining. Hello.
Hi. Happy International Women's Day. How are you?
Yes, very good. Thank you for your patience. I was on the main Pandia Health site. So thank you.
No worries. Listen, this is technology. It is a whole lot going on. So I get it. I'm happy to be here with you.
Yes, very much so. And wow, you've got an amazing backdrop there.
Thank you. This is an early birthday vacation getaway from my husband, but this was a really important conversation I wanted to be a part of. So this is not my normal background. I wish it was, but it's not.
Well, looks like you are in a position of power and progress on top of a big building, which is matching our International Women's Day. So we need women in places that can make decisions and help other women along their journey in life.
I agree. I have had some wonderful men that have assisted me in positions of power, but I've had some amazing women that have assisted me in front of the scenes, behind the scenes, pulled me to the side, given me a little nugget of information that helped propel, so the power comes in so many different ways because there's so many people who have influence, maybe not at the table, but they're influencing the people at the table, and they utilize that power in that way. So yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. Well, we're meeting today because you have a very wonderful following and women that you discuss important topics, lifestyle topics, health topics. And the topic diving into today is a big concern for a lot of women in midlife, starting in the late 30s and onward, and that is with weight gain and particularly weight distribution.
And I was just going to say, anytime that I'm often surprised by so many within this community who, whenever I post any content related to menopause, it's this almost this unwritten, unspoken reality that all of us are walking through. And so I am here really what I have learned as the interest in that content has, and those topics, that particular topic, has really grown, that I'd like to open up the conversation, open up the dialogue, because the reality is that we are all in different stages of it, and we're experiencing it perhaps in a bit different way. But as a whole, we're still like, wait a minute, where did this stomach come from? I haven't had a stomach all this time. Or I used to be able to sleep all the way through the night, and all of a sudden I can't sleep through the night. And we're not necessarily, what I've learned is we're not necessarily connecting the dots to, oh, this is a part of the overall shift and change in my body. And so I'm excited to have an expert such as yourself have this conversation so that we can have a convo with the guru, a subject matter expert that can tell us we're not all crazy. This is just a part of the journey.
Oh, absolutely. And there's no one's going crazy, and there's real physiologic reasons why we experience weight gain, and particularly when we change and we notice more distribution in the abdominal area, or what we call the visceral fat area, where adipose or fat tissues or fat can encompass around our internal organs and deep, within our body. So, in essence, it really, to be able to tackle this, is really to look at it from all aspects. There's not just one approach to address this, but it's really about, believe it or not, it's really again about lifestyle and choices that we make as women. But we do know that as we age and we go through our reproductive, let's say for a woman that hasn't gone through early menopause or premature menopause or surgical menopause, but we all have a genetic predetermined kind of rate that we enter menopause that we get from our mothers and our ancestors. So there's genetics involved, there's race involved. So we have a progression where our ovaries are producing the sex hormones. And as we get older, and the average age for across the board is about 51, 52 years of age, that our ovaries are then, we're in menopause where we have 1 year of lack of menstruation. But before that, for many years, our ovaries are declining in sex hormone production. And what can happen with that is that when we have decrease of estrogen in our bodies, we also start to decline our lean muscle mass. So we're having other things that are occurring at the same time, influenced by estrogen. If you think about estrogen is in all areas of our bodies with different receptors that it acts on. So if we have decreased lean muscle mass, then we don't utilize our calories the same way. And if we don't utilize our calories the same way, then we might be on a plus side, right? If we're still ingesting. The other thing that happens is sleep deprivation. So it doesn't take vasomotor symptoms or the hot flashes that women start to notice even in the perimenopause time, but we start to have disruptions in sleep due to decline of estrogen as well. So women are awakening, and so when we also know that sleep can be an independent risk factor for weight, right? Increased weight. So it's really about approaching these top things in our life to really grapple with weight and visceral weight, to be specific.
Okay.
So yeah, so you can ask me more directed questions that can help, because again, it's about five things, right? It's our sleep,
Mhm.
it's our exercise, it's what we eat, it's our stress level.
Mhm.
So if you look at all of these things, but then for each individual woman, she has support in certain areas, and then she may need support in other areas to
Okay.
really help. And so it's really a combination of a lot of things. It's not just one trick where I see people say, well, what exactly do you need to eat and so forth. But we do know that if we implement and try to focus on those areas in our life, as well as now we can talk about replacing hormones as well to help us sleep and energy, which would then help us with exercise and metabolism. But if we really give women the tools to work on those 4 to 5 areas, then we can make a real significance in abdominal or belly fat, let's say.
So this was a wealth of information, just what you just shared. So let me tell you some things that I heard that really stood out to me. Particularly, it sounds like it's very unique. So you've got ancestral and genetic factors, you have race and ethnicity factors. Those are just those core things that you wouldn't have any choice over, or you wouldn't have the ability to be able to change. They are what they are. And so then there are all the other factors related to the things that we can change, that we can control, related to the food, even drinks, alcoholic, not alcoholic,
Absolutely.
drinks, I'm sure plays quite a role. And then we've got the uncontrollables and the controllables, and then the controllables then roll into the other things that have a domino effect. Like, I would have never connected necessarily the lack of sleep to then the lack of energy to then the lack of energy to exercise, but we need the exercise. And then maybe even affecting our food choices, because we then don't have the energy to put meals together or really make the better healthy decisions. It's like, just need something to eat, or I just am going to have something to drink. So if you can chat with me about, particularly as it relates to, and I love that you even broke down that it's not a one size fits all. So it's like, oh, you should stay away from carbs, or oh, you need to add more protein, or oh, you need to stay away from sugars. It sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, if maybe we can start with the food and the drink portion and choices. Maybe if we could start there, and then roll that perhaps into the fatigue and the sleep portion, and what in general. This is why I love Pandia Health. I love that we have access to you all, because we can get a unique program and discussion and conversation going that's going to really be beneficial for our unique needs. But if we can maybe talk about food and beverages, and then kind of roll into the fatigue, sleep, and then exercise portion in general, of course.
Absolutely. So there's been a lot of talk about plant-based. So I can't say enough about plant-based diet. Now, a lot of us are not going to be strictly vegetarian, right?
Yeah.
But plant-based means make more choices surrounding plants. And that has also been shown to actually alleviate vasomotor symptoms. There is a study that shows that if you follow a plant-based diet and also focus on soy, that there is a reduction in vasomotor symptoms. And there is one study that's fairly cited a lot that is a behavior that one can take. But we do know that choosing more high fiber, lean protein, and the complex carbohydrates that we find in, grain breads and so forth are what we should focus on. Mediterranean diet, of course, has always proved time and time again to be the diet that does it for everyone. It just seems like that is a real solid choice if someone needs to choose something in particular. Now, there's been data on intermittent fasting, and intermittent fasting in the terms of 16 hours without food, and then 8 hours of eating, again, high protein, specific things, nothing to do with starchy or carbs, but really focusing on quality value food in the terms of nutrients.
So basically, what I'm hearing you saying, doctor, is my love for Alfredo pasta and any kind of pasta dish, again, in moderation, but that we're leaning more towards, and I don't want to give percentages necessarily, but just to throw out a number like an 80-20 or there's 75-25, but we're leaning more towards the Mediterranean and the high protein, high fiber, plant-based menus and options within our home than the latter.
Absolutely. And it really doesn't need to be a percentage. It's really your plate. So if half your plate is green or, plant-based, and the other half is, maybe your nice lean meat, and also fishes, right? So Fishes that are high in fatty acids, such as anchovies or herring or sardines, those are ones that are plugged in this to be positive with the omega-3s and the fatty acids. But
Right.
really is to simplify life. Just a plate, half of it leafy and green and salads and vegetables, and it shouldn't be complicated, and the other half is, your protein or your fish. And also, again, to your point, we have our things that we crave, or we have our favorite dishes. It's not saying we need to avoid them. It's just portion, small treats, right? But for the most part, to follow more of high fiber, plant-based, and lean sources of protein.
Okay. All right. I'm sure I'm not hearing, and I know you mentioned vegetarian earlier.
Yeah.
Is are we staying away from meat? Not altogether, but I know most Mediterranean diets are more of your legumes, more of your vegetables, things of that nature. Other sources of protein, as you mentioned, like your chickpeas and your quinoa, maybe, perhaps.
Yes, well, protein can come in tofu, right? Protein is in fish, protein is chicken, protein is pork, protein is lean ground beef, right? So it's really about proportion, and the American College of Cardiology, or the American Cardiology Association, has specifics on their website for the public to denote exactly like how many ounces of red meat are deemed appropriate or recommended, right? So again, it's individual. Everybody's different. We have different cultures. We have, different ways that we pass down, right? We pass down our love through our food. So it's really not taking away from that, but just recognizing portions and what to maybe embellish upon.
Okay.
If there's a wonderful cultural recipe, then that's really legume driven, go for it, right? I've got I have the French background, so it's ratatouille a lot at my house.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Yes. We have a question that
Yeah.
comes as I've just 40. When does menopause usually start? And I know we're in general talking about like
Right.
kind of the menopause belly and the menopause diet, and how the general effects start to really become a part of our day-to-day life. There isn't necessarily an age. Is there, doctor, on when you start, where you are in the process? Can you speak a bit more about that?
Yes. Well, the Menopause Society has created the straw classifications, which is the scientific way of, denoting perimenopause and early to later to then menopause. But we don't need to do that. But we do know that perimenopause uh, can start at any time, 7 or 8 years before what are generally we go into menopause about the same time that our mother has. So the thing is, a lot of us didn't have conversations with our mother
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Right. So we have an average ballpark age, which can fluctuate depending on race too. So it's generally 51, 52 for the general population, but women can experience perimenopausal symptoms, and we never want to discount what they're feeling, because women can go into early menopause as well, and we don't want to miss that segment or that population of women that really need additional help or prompt help, right? Because they are even at higher risk of medical conditions if you go into menopause early or prematurely.
Mm. Okay, that's really helpful. She said, thank you. And I love that. That's why I love forums like this, because you're absolutely right. These weren't for the vast majority of us. And I definitely say the vast majority of kind of your Gen X range, probably your older millennials as well. We didn't have these conversations, and we don't even know if we didn't have the conversations with our mothers, and we don't even know if our mothers even recognized when they may have started, and at what point they really started seeing the symptoms. So that's why I love forums like this and experts such as yourself, because we can then get the information, have it for ourselves, and then open up those conversations with others. Okay, so we were chatting about the legumes, the Mediterranean diet, how we have our plate built out. We want to make sure we've got plenty of leafy, green goodness on our plates. So chat a bit with me about beverages.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
got your Starbucks, sugary, yummy. We've got your alcoholic beverages. We've got water. Help me in that space, what you would suggest or recommend.
Well, I mean, if a woman is really gung ho on really addressing this, really no amount of alcohol is really good for women, period.
Okay.
You, it's one of those things where we do know that consumption of alcohol, more than one glass a day, it can increases our risk for breast cancer as well.
I
So
didn't know that. Okay.
yeah, so it's really truly, if one really wants to tackle this in all aspects of nutrition, is to avoid alcohol,
Okay.
to increase hydration and water, because water fuels our metabolism.
Okay.
So if we're not hydrated well enough, which a lot of us are not, we're not even optimizing our own body's machinery to tackle. So really, people think, oh, I'm just drinking and I feel so bloated and I'm drinking and I'm drinking. But of course, I don't want people to have water intoxication, but really to really be cognizant of being hydrated, because you think that water doesn't have calories or fuel, but it actually is like the gas that helps us metabolize. So hydration is very important. If you like a little something, you add just a little bit of fruit juice, like grapefruit juice or orange juice, and you naturally give yourself your spritzer, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yes, that's true. And stay away from, the high fructose drinks.
Mhm.
So, and that's really important as well. If we have children at home, we really should give them freshly squeezed um, grapefruit juice, and some freshly squeezed orange juice is wonderful at times, but to really hydrate with water, water majority type beverages.
Can I ask a question
Yeah.
particularly related to water? So, when it comes to like a Gatorade, when it comes to, and not so much about a brand, but more so about your drinks that have electrolytes in them,
Mhm, mhm.
what are your thoughts? What's your perspective, Dr. Culver, on should we just stick with the water? And this isn't to disintegrate any type of electrical drink, but what are your thoughts on that?
Gosh, that's a great question. I haven't really dived into it, but I do, my son's a very big athlete. He loves working out, and even at some of these high tech kind of basketball places, there are new drinks coming into play, because even the pro basketball players, they don't want some of these, kind of sugary drinks that we think are giving us a bunch of energy,
Yeah.
right? Like they're actually streamlining their own performance drinks. So just to note that the high performance athletes are looking at this, and it really takes quite a bit of exercise to like deplete yourself of the salts and the nutrients that one needs. And if you're going on a huge long hike, or you're training for the 5K or the 10K, yes, there are certain like the tablets that add back certain electrolytes and energy, and we do know that it's important to have a certain amount of salt or magnesium or potassium even added back, right? Because
Mhm.
we don't want muscle cramping and so forth after we've exercised or started an exercise regimen. But to be careful of how many calories are in these electrolyte or nutrient type of sports drinks.
Okay. That's helpful. It sounds like maybe at least for now, till we have more info,
Yeah.
till we have more research, water is the way to go when it comes to the hydration and the beverage portion. I want to be mindful of our time, but I also wanted to just check in with you about
Yeah.
exercise. Any recommendations in that space? Any particular, and again, everything is unique and individual to each person. But in general, what are your thoughts as it relates to exercise and the importance of
Yeah.
it as we're moving through this phase of our life?
Well, I think most of the data shows that it's really a combination, right? You want aerobic and you want the weight bearing type of exercise, right? The strength training. So it's the two together that continuously show that that has more of effect on addressing weight. So people that focus on specifically like crunching or trying to get to the abdomen with a lot of directed exercises, it's so important to do aerobic. So just general oxygen consumption, breathing, the whole body, blood flow. And that should be done at, 30 minutes for 5 times a week is really the baseline. So if you can get out there with aerobic activity, meaning a slow run, a brisk walk for 30 minutes, 5 times a day, trying to get up to, we hope, even up to even 75 minutes. But a lot of us don't have that amount of time.
Yeah.
But 30 minutes, 5 times a week is wonderful.
Okay. Do you think that there's an increased need for it, increased benefit for it as we start to move through this phase of our life?
Absolutely.
Not that there isn't a need for it any time,
Right.
but
Well, absolutely. So we do know that as we go through perimenopause and into menopause, we lose bone at an accelerated rate. Okay.
okay.
We also lose muscle mass. So the two together called sarcopenia, or sarcopenia meaning like the loss of muscle mass, and then osteoporosis together, or osteopenia together, make us even more vulnerable. So in this period of time where we transition, doing weight training to improve and to not lose as much muscle mass is imperative. So again, like running or doing any type of exercise that we know that is improving our muscle strength is going to help us retain as much lean muscle mass that we should be retaining. And again, if we approach the decline of estrogen, so this is like a big plug. So perimenopause, we have a decline in estrogen production, and then we hit menopause. And so women miss this window of opportunity. They sometimes are told by their doctors, "Oh, you're not in menopause yet." But you know what? There's some silent killers out there, and osteoporosis is one of them. And so we do know that if we're active with weight bearing, aerobic, we're tackling our muscle mass and we're tackling our bone. And at the same time, when we have more muscle, we metabolize better. And then again, it goes back again to the abdomen.
Yeah.
So you see
See,
how it's all like a
yeah.
circle interconnected.
That's why I love these conversations in these spaces, because you don't necessarily, well, let me speak for myself. I haven't necessarily connected the dots. It makes sense now that you explain it, but because I feel like this isn't a part of an everyday discourse. You have this thing over here, you have this item over here, and you're not necessarily connecting that. Number one, that they connect. And number two, that it's part of a greater connection. And if I affect and change this, again, we've got the controllables and the uncontrollables. If I'm affecting change in my controllables, I can start this cycle of change in the direction that's most beneficial for me, not realizing that these are all not just one offs, but they're really connected together. So I love this. This is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, when women are perimenopausal and they're having symptoms, and even we can talk about prevention later if someone's not having symptoms, but 70% of women have symptoms. So they've got symptoms, and vasomotor symptoms are number one. But if you have lack of sleep and you don't address it, but if someone gives you estrogen, which is the most effective method to treat vasomotor symptoms, and you sleep better, you can imagine with the increased energy, then you have less hunger or less using food as a way to give yourself energy because you're thinking that's what I need. Then you have more energy to exercise. You've slept better. And so, again, it really is important that during this vulnerable period of time, women are being asked about their perimenopausal symptoms and their vital sign, which is their menstrual cycle. We have to ask people, because what we found out is that when people don't ask, people don't tell. And we need to give women permission to tell us why and when they're suffering.
So let me ask that on that vein of the don't ask, don't tell.
Mm-hmm.
If we are, and two things. One, I know you mentioned, is it vasomotor?
Vasomotor.
Can you?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Can you?
Vasomotor is when, so the vasomotor symptoms are the hot flashes where you break out into sweats, or you feel all of a sudden hot and there's no reason why. Now, there are some things that precipitate it, like hot foods and so forth, but it's a central response. It's in our brain.
Okay.
But estrogen acts on our brain too. So if we have a certain amount of estrogen or whatever concentration of estrogen, then our thermoregulatory system works in a way that we don't have a hot flash or a set off. So if it happens at night, which they can occur all throughout the day, but if it happens at night, we have a dilatation of our blood vessels, a release of sweating and warmth, and we wake up and we're uncomfortable. And the more severe those hot flashes are, or the more frequent, is actually shown to be correlated with more morbidity for women. So more cardiovascular risk factors or diseases associated with more vasomotor symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And even in Alzheimer's too, we're finding. So we're finding that vasomotor symptoms and the severity and the frequency in which they occur can be correlated with long-term morbidity in medical conditions.
Wow.
So it's so important to ask women about this and give them permission to bring it up and not to discount them.
So I love what you said regarding the giving permission, allowing women to regain their agency is a way that I would state it too. At what point do you think, or at what point are there certain symptoms that we may be experiencing where we should maybe pivot, and perhaps the doctor that we can have that doctor in conjunction with someone like yourself, Dr. Culver, who's very specialized in this space. At what point would you recommend women start discovering or exploring, rather, having some conversations maybe with more of a subject matter expert such as yourself?
That's a really good question. And the goal for OBGYNs is to make sure that all specialties in medicine understand women's health, because we're 50% of or 51% of the people they're going to see in their office, whether they're an ophthalmologist, a neurologist, a cardiologist. So they need to understand what 50% of women are in, which is midlife.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's a continuation of just our life. It has to do with we have puberty, some of us have pregnancy, some of us has postpartum, and then we have transition. And it's all about really our reproductive hormones. Mm-hmm. And so we need all specialties to be on board. But unfortunately, medicine is quite specialized, and certain specialties don't want to answer certain questions. So we've been in a place where women feel like they just want the lowdown. They want someone an expert and someone who has committed themselves to, we have a certification from the Menopause Society. I'm certified. I've been for about 4 years, or maybe close to 4 years now. But there's about 1,500 of us that are menopause certified nurse practitioners, nurse midwives, even family practice doctors, internists. But all of these individuals have committed to learn the guidelines to make sure that we're not turning away people that previously thought they weren't able to take menopause hormone therapy, and that they didn't quite understand that, so they go to some doctors and they don't think that you need to treat someone for perimenopause symptoms. So we really are out there to educate also other doctors so that the conversation is started and that nobody is denied. But if we have an access problem, then we have now telehealth opportunities that can really zero in on this particular aspect of their medical needs that actually influences a lot of their body systems, right? But this is at least a way that we can give people even resources that they can talk to their own doctor about, and that we can start them on the therapy. So it is not to replace the importance of that relationship with their doctor, because they do need comprehensive care. They do need an examination, but it's really to say, look, I got started on this. Here are the resources, and here's the guidelines. Here are the guidelines from the Menopause Society. Here are the guidelines from the American College of OBGYNs. And therefore, it becomes shared discussion with the doctor.
I love that, because that's so much, I think, from a very personal standpoint for me, that's beautiful about days such as International Women's Day today, that's set aside because we are wearing so many hats as women. And typically, one of the last hats that we tend to put on is caring for ourselves,
Right.
and very basic need care of ourselves. And what I hear you saying is, hey, as menopause doctors who are certified practitioners in this space, it's great for us to be a part of the team. And we are the team of people that are helping this woman care for herself, to get the care that she needs, to get the information that she needs. Because I've learned a lot just in our time together about different choices that I need to make that I wasn't even putting necessarily a lot of value on. How, again, it's part of that circle and that cycle, and how this is affecting that, and that is affecting this, and how I can take some of those controllables, food, beverages, exercise, and the like, and with an increased awareness. Because I do think as we get older, we still kind of have the mindset that our bodies were like they were in their 20s and like they were in their 30s, and our bodies just say, so things have changed and we need to make some adjustments. We need you to get in alignment with
Right.
what we need in here. So I love opportunities like this, where someone such as yourself has a wealth of information, and that we can regain our agency and give ourselves permission to have the right people to the team. Because, and you had mentioned essentially a cardiologist need earlier. If we had anything going on with our eyes, we would go to an optometrist. If we had anything with an ENT specialist, we would go to someone for that. So this is just the same concept in my mind, that this is a specialized area. And so come on, Dr. Culver, to the team. We need you on the team so that we can get the care that we need.
Absolutely. And the goal is hopefully that every specialty that sees a woman in midlife understands the type of medical conditions that can arise that are unique and particular to midlife women.
Yeah, agreed. And I love just even the acknowledgement that there are unique needs, and not only the acknowledgement, but that it's okay.
Right.
There is nothing to be shameful about or nothing to be fearful about. It's actually a beautiful thing that we're at this point where we have these many years here on earth to experience and impact other people's lives. And now we need to make sure that for this part of our life that we have the information and the access that we need. Anything else you can think that would be really important to share?
Well, yes, I would love it if during a next visit with your doctor, whether it's, a generalist, a nurse practitioner, a nurse midwife, or your gynecologist, that you bring up, am I a candidate for menopause hormone therapy? When would you suggest using it? Do I have any risk factors that I should be aware of? And recognizing that the perimenopause period of time is a time not only of vulnerability, but actually of great optimization. It's a period of optimization, and how best can I optimize my health for a, a great life ahead?
I love that. I will tell you personally, that is perfect timing. My annual exam is actually later this month.
Good.
So, and before this conversation, I would have never even considered broaching it. I know for me personally, I'm usually running, on two wheels, as I'm running out of one meeting and getting to
Right.
it's just amazing. I could even get this on the calendar. So it's like, okay, we got to get this done and move on to the next thing. And so this conversation has really helped me realize that I need to just slow down and really take care of me, which includes the question that I now will ask
Yeah.
at my next annual exam. Am I a candidate? And, let's have some conversation about that, because I do feel oftentimes it's like any other professional. If you don't give them all the information, they can only make an assessment based on the information and the data that they have in front of them.
Right.
And so if we're not communicating, hey, these are some things that I'm experiencing, then they wouldn't necessarily know unless they see it through some other means of what they're checking. So I will take that on personally in my next annual exam to have that conversation with my general practitioner.
That's great. And also, you can download on Menopause Society a whole list of perimenopausal symptoms. So then you can check mark them off and then present that, just to make sure that you've been primed to know which symptoms that you want to share.
I love that. Tell me again where we can
So
find that.
it's the Menopause Society,
Okay.
and that is the society that educates doctors and also gives the certification for expert care. But they also have the women's section for women, and there are downloads available that go over the perimenopausal and menopausal symptoms, so that therefore you can look through them, check mark off the ones that you have, like, oh wow, I do have dry eyes, or joint pain, and so forth. So you're really ready for your discussion.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, how can people reach you? How can
Yes.
people contact you?
So you can go to Pandia Health, and we have well, basically we have various different ways that we help women. So we can help women with their reproductive health. And of course, pregnancy and preventing pregnancy is very important, and also very important in perimenopause as well. Women are still dealing with, how do I, or do I still want to have children, or do I want to avoid pregnancy? So that's a very important topic. Pandia Health can address that in the perimenopause period of time. But also, there's also a perimenopause menopause section, which allows you to sign up and be assessed with a full comprehensive questionnaire, and then discussion and messaging with a physician, a board certified physician, and to review if you have restrictions or what type of symptoms are major concerns and how best we can help you to achieve wellness, sleep, peace of mind. Lots of different things that we can help with to make sure that you're being offered these options and not have a barrier in achieving them.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And I love the content that not only Pandia Health, I know you mentioned both sides of the house, but I love the content that Pandia Health puts out and posts, because it again opens up conversations that I still think have somewhat of a stigma and a taboo attached to them, even though we're going through them, even though we are experiencing, there is a bit of a taboo still there. And then, of course, the Pandia Menopause pages and social platforms as well that provide great information and opportunities to connect with fantastic people such as yourself. So I am excited about the taboos on this International Women's Day being dismissed and diminished, and the stigmas being removed as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for a wealth of information that you've provided. Thank you for allowing me to have this conversation with you.
Thank you too. I enjoyed very much talking to you and meeting you.
Absolutely. So if anyone should like to connect with Dr. Culver, she's provided great opportunities, as well as board certified specialist practitioners in this specific space as well. And all of the information is on the Pandia Health and Pandia Menopause sites and social platforms. So thank you so much, Dr. Culver. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.